Right team, in today's video I'm going to be going over why it's so important to be doing resistance training for your back, how to do it properly when you're at a gym or at home, and what significance it has to you. Stick around. It's great to have you as always. Before we get into it, if you are interested in my nutritional tips videos, me going about how you can change your body composition, reduce your body fat percentage, and these type of anatomical videos where I related to resistance training, then please drop this video a like and let me know in the YouTube comments also what you want to see in future. Plus, if you haven't joined the AA gang yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button because I'd love you to join, and I'll give you a big virtual pat on the back right now if you do. There you go, have a little feel. First of all, I'm going to go over the major muscle groups in the back that's generally talked about in the fitness industry, because there are lots of different muscles that make up the back. But if we're talking about the major ones, you have the trapezius, the rhomboids, the latissimus dorsi, the teres major and minor, which is generally known as the rear delts, and then your erector spinae. There's some pretty funky names, aren't they?
I mean, why on earth would you call a muscle group after a trapezius?
I'm going to go over the main movements I'd recommend to build up these muscle groups, but one major reason I'd recommend anybody to do resistance training for the back is that all these muscle groups surround the spinal column, the spinal cord, and building up these muscle groups, making them stronger and building up the muscle tissue will help keep your spine stable and will protect you from hurting your back in the long-term future. If you take somebody who doesn't do any resistance training for their back at all, and then somebody who does do progressive resistance training for their back, the person with less muscle around the spinal column is going to be at more risk. Say for example, if we took a skiing accident, these two people went skiing, the person with the more muscle will come out better from this accident if they had an impact injury from skiing, say they hit a tree or something, because they have that much more muscle around their spine. That's going to protect them a lot more than somebody who has no muscle tissue at all. Plus, one of the most common injuries I come across as a personal trainer are lower back injuries, and that's usually because people are lifting up compost bags into their cars, or they're moving awkward objects around the garden which have a lot of soil in them and are very heavy, and it's because people are having to round their backs to be able to lift up these awkward objects, and they're usually using a jerky movement to be able to pick up these objects or move these awkward objects. You need to be doing resistance training to help get your body ready to do these kind of movements, and also train your central nervous system to move heavier loads. Doing lower repetition strength work is going to prime your central nervous system to moving heavier loads, get your body ready for it, and then doing slightly higher repetition stuff, but anywhere up to 15 repetitions is going to help build up muscle tissue, which is going to build up muscle mass and the muscle fascia, so you have more muscle protecting your body and your joints. I want to draw your attention to one study in particular done in 2011 by Jackson et al. Called The Influence of Periodized Resistance Training on Recreational Active Males with Chronic Non-Specific Low Back Pain. This study had 3 subject groups: a control group, a middle-aged men group, and then an old-aged men group. To briefly summarise the whole article, and then I'll go into a little bit more detail, after a 12-week progressive resistance training program, but prior to that there was a 3-week familiarisation program to get used to the exercises, all the men in the middle-aged group and the old-aged group who were doing the progressive resistance training program for the 12 weeks and the 3 weeks familiarisation program, they all saw improvements in muscle mass, body fat percentage, quality of life, lower back pain, and I could go on. They saw positive improvements in pretty much everything. So if you look at this chart here, they tested their 5 repetition maxes on certain resistance training exercises every 4 weeks. So they did the test at the start, then every 4 weeks, and you'll see PRT means progressive resistance training, and then they put the total repetitions on the side. It says they had a certain amount from the first 3 weeks of progressive resistance training, then they had more the next 3 weeks, and then there was slightly less in the last 3 weeks, and to take an educated guess, they just slightly lowered the volume for that last week after accumulation phase in that middle 3 weeks before they did their last test. These are all the exercises they use: leg press, leg extension, leg curl, all the way down. I won't read out the whole list, but it was a full body resistance training program with some back exercises in there as well as some core exercises. During the progressive resistance training weeks, they were doing 4 days a week and a mixture of upper and lower body exercises with core thrown in there on different days. And as you can see here, with 3 of the exercises they measured, there were significant improvements in the middle-aged and old age groups in strength and the numbers they were using for their 5 repetition max, and also improvements in pain, quality of life, and with their overall health. It's clear here you need to include lower back exercises, but also resistance training exercises for your full body to improve quality of life with low back pain and to protect your back. Here are my top exercises I'd recommend you do at the gym, and I'll give you variations of how to do it at home to build up the muscles in your back. For the trapezius, one of the best exercises in my opinion is the upright row, but also heavy deadlifts are really good to be able to help build up the strength in your trapezius. Then for the teres major minor, the rear delts, doing a standing rear delt fly is really good, and I recommend doing lots more free weighted exercises because you have to use smaller stabilizing muscles to get your body used to moving a free weight rather than just being fixed in with a machine. Then if we look at the rhomboids, then I'd recommend you do something like a seated cable row if you're not used to free weights, or if you can, doing a barbell row or a Pendlay row is really good to help build up your rhomboids. And then for the latissimus dorsi, the lats, the major big muscle groups in the back, doing a pull-up, a weighted pull-up even, is really good to help build up these muscle groups. And then also a dumbbell row to isolate each of the lats. If you were to just do barbell stuff without isolating each side, then you will start to create imbalances. So doing dumbbell rows, so you're using each arm separately, that's a really good way of being able to build up the back and making sure both muscle groups each side are even. And then finally for the erector spinae, a hyperextension, a reverse hyperextension, or doing deadlifts. A combination of those three is really good to help build up the lower back. It's going to feel uncomfortable training your lower back because it's going to feel like you're hurting your lower back, but you're actually going to be building up the muscle groups. But with all back exercises, you need to just make sure that you have correct posture when doing it. So a slight tilt in your pelvis when you're performing the movement. Make sure you're keeping your core really tight and putting your shoulder blades, putting your scapula back, just so you have really good posture and you're putting your body in the best position to be able to engage your back muscles rather than just being really round at the shoulder, not engaging your core. That's going to put you more at risk. With any resistance training exercises, they are really good at protecting you and building up muscle groups, but if performed incorrectly, they can be dangerous. Just make sure you do it correctly. Anyway, thank you for that. We're going to move on to the verse of the video. For today's video, the verse is going to be John 16 verse 33. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. This is Jesus talking to the disciples quite soon before he ascends into heaven. And he's reminding us here that in this world, as a Christian, you're not guaranteed to have a very smooth life. You're still going to experience suffering, death. People are going to hurt you physically, emotionally. We're not guaranteed to be free of that, but with Jesus and in Christ Jesus, we can have peace and assurance that there is hope after this life. Thanks again for watching the video. It's been great to see you. I look forward to seeing you in my next one. If you're interested in online coaching, then do send me an email. It's in the YouTube description.